The Texas sun blazed mercilessly on that Wednesday afternoon in late June, the kind of heat that made the air shimmer above the pavement like liquid glass. Sofia Rodriguez wiped sweat from her forehead as she watched her 3-year-old daughter, Emma, playing in their backyard sandbox. The little girl was completely absorbed in her imaginary world, her curly brown hair bouncing as she chatted animatedly with her plastic dinosaurs, creating elaborate stories only she could understand. "Mama, the T-Rex is having a tea party," Emma announced, her gap-toothed smile lighting up her entire face. Her voice carried that distinctive lisp that Sofia found absolutely precious, the kind of thing she knew she'd miss terribly when Emma inevitably outgrew it. "That's wonderful, baby," Sofia called back from the patio where she was folding laundry. "Is he being polite?" "He's using his best manners," Emma giggled, making the toy dinosaur bow elaborately. Sofia smiled, soaking in the mundane perfection of the moment. These were the days she tried to memorize, the ordinary afternoons that somehow contained all the magic of motherhood. The sound of Emma's laughter, the smell of jasmine from the neighbor's yard, the comfortable weight of domesticity. She had no way of knowing that in less than 2 minutes her entire world would shatter. The phone rang inside the house. Sofia glanced at Emma, who was completely engrossed in lining up her toys. The backyard was fully fenced, the gate was closed, and Sofia would only be gone for a moment. She'd done this 100 times before, stepped inside to grab something while Emma played safely in their secure yard. "Keep playing, sweetheart. Mama will be right back," Sofia said, already moving toward the sliding glass door. "Okay, Mama." Emma's voice was cheerful, carefree. Inside, Sofia grabbed the phone from the kitchen counter. It was her mother, calling about dinner plans for the weekend. Sofia cradled the phone between her shoulder and ear as she opened the refrigerator, pulling out Emma's favorite juice box, the apple kind with the cartoon elephants on the package. "Yes, Mom, Sunday works fine. Marco doesn't have to work that weekend," Sofia was saying when she heard it. Or rather, when she didn't hear it. The silence cut through her consciousness like a knife. No talking, no singing, no sound of plastic toys clicking together. Every parent knows that sound, the absence of noise that screams danger louder than any alarm. "Mom, I have to go," Sofia said abruptly, dropping the phone without waiting for a response. The juice box fell from her hand, forgotten. She rushed to the sliding door, her heart already beginning to race. Emma. The sandbox was empty, toys scattered but no little girl. "Emma," Sofia's voice was sharper now, edged with the first knife blade of panic. She burst through the door onto the patio, her eyes sweeping the yard in one desperate scan. The swing set empty, behind the garden shed empty, near the rose bushes empty. Then Sofia saw it. The gate. The gate she had checked, the gate she had closed, was now swinging open, moved by the hot breeze that had picked up. The metal latch hung loose, clearly not engaged. "Emma," the scream tore from Sofia's throat, raw and primal. She sprinted across the yard, through the gate into the street. "Emma, baby, where are you?" The street was empty. No little girl in a pink t-shirt and denim shorts. No sound of pattering feet. Nothing. Sofia ran down the sidewalk, her head whipping left and right. "Emma, Emma, please." Her voice was breaking, terror flooding her system. How long had she been inside? 1 minute, 2. How far could a 3-year-old get in 2 minutes? Doors began opening along the street. Neighbors emerged, drawn by Sofia's screams. "What's wrong?" Mrs. Patterson from next door called out. "Emma, she's gone. I can't find Emma." Sofia could barely form words. Her hands were shaking violently. "When did you last see her?" Mr. Chen from across the street was already pulling out his phone. 2 minutes ago, maybe 3. She was in the backyard and the gate was open. "Call 911, Mr. Chen ordered his wife. "Everyone start searching. Check your yards, your garages, anywhere a small child might go." The neighborhood erupted into action. Within 5 minutes, 20 people were searching. Within 10, the first police car arrived. Within 15, Marco's truck came screeching around the corner. Someone had called him at the construction site where he worked. Sophia collapsed into her husband's arms. "I only looked away for a minute," she sobbed. "Just 1 minute, Marco. I thought the gate was latched. I always latch the gate." Marco held her tight, his own face gray with fear. "We'll find her. We'll find our baby." But as the sun began its descent toward the horizon and more police arrived, as search dogs were brought in and officers started asking questions about the gate, whether it could have blown open or whether someone might have opened it deliberately, a cold, terrible reality began to settle over Sophia Rodriguez. Her daughter was gone, really, truly gone, and every minute that passed made the statistics worse. The first few hours were critical in missing child cases. Everyone knew that. Every parent's worst fear, and it was happening to her. As darkness fell on their suburban Austin neighborhood, as helicopters with searchlights began circling overhead and news vans started lining up at the end of their street, Sophia stood in Emma's bedroom, holding her daughter's favorite stuffed rabbit. The room still smelled like baby shampoo and the lavender spray she used on Emma's sheets. Somewhere out there in the dark, her 3-year-old daughter was alone and scared. Or worse, Sophia's mind wouldn't let her finish that thought. "Please," she whispered to whatever god might be listening, "please bring her home." She had no way of knowing that at that very moment, a German shepherd named Rex was being loaded into a K9 unit vehicle, about to begin the most important search of his career. Officer Michael Chen had been a K9 handler for 8 years, but he'd never gotten used to missing child calls. They hit different than any other case, harder, deeper, with an urgency that made his chest tight and his prayers more fervent. When the call came through about Emma Rodriguez at 6:47 p.m. on Wednesday evening, he was just finishing his shift. He didn't hesitate. "Come on, Rex. We've got work to do," he said, opening the back of his patrol vehicle. Rex, a 5-year-old German shepherd with intelligent amber eyes and a black and tan coat that gleamed even in the harsh precinct lighting, leaped into the vehicle with practiced ease. The dog knew that tone in Chen's voice. This wasn't a training exercise or a routine patrol. This was real. As Chen drove toward the Rodriguez neighborhood, he reviewed what little information dispatch had provided. 3-year-old female missing approximately 4 hours now. Last seen in backyard. Gate found open. Extensive ground search already underway with no results. The woods behind the subdivision were dense, stretching for miles. If Emma had wandered in there. Chen forced himself not to complete that thought. Stay focused. Trust the training. Trust Rex. They'd been partners since Rex was 18 months old, fresh out of K9 Academy. In those 8 years together, they'd found 12 missing persons, elderly dementia patients who'd wandered from care facilities, teenagers who'd run away, a kidnapped infant, a suicidal veteran who'd walked into the forest. 12 people who were alive because of Rex's incredible nose and unwavering determination. But they'd also had failures. 3 cases where they'd found bodies instead of survivors. Chen still saw their faces sometimes when he closed his eyes. He couldn't let Emma Rodriguez become number 4. The Rodriguez house was chaos. Police vehicles lined the street, their lights painting everything in alternating blue and red. Volunteers milled everywhere, some heading out with flashlights, others returning from fruitless searches of the immediate area. Chen spotted the parents immediately, a woman with mascara-stained cheeks being held up by a man who looked like he was barely holding himself together. Chen's captain, Sarah Morrison, briefed him quickly. "We've searched a 2-mile radius. Nothing. Checked every house, every garage, every shed. The woods are our biggest concern now. Dense brush, creek beds, drainage systems. We've got 3 other K9 units working grids to the east and north. I need you and Rex to take the western section, starting from that tree line behind the Rodriguez property." "Yes, ma'am." Chen knelt beside Rex, letting the dog smell Emma's blanket that the mother had provided. "This is our girl, buddy. We need to bring her home." Rex's nose worked overtime, processing the scent. His tail was up, alert, focused. This dog lived for this work. They started at the open gate where Emma had disappeared. Rex immediately caught something, pulling Chen toward the street, then stopping, circling back. The scent was there but confusing, likely contaminated by the dozens of searchers who had trampled through the area. Chen let Rex work it out, trusting the dog's process. After 20 minutes, Rex's behavior changed. His nose went down, his pace quickened, and he started pulling Chen toward the wooded area behind the neighboring properties. They pushed through someone's backyard, past a swimming pool, through a gap in a fence. The forest swallowed them. Street lights disappeared behind thick canopy. Chen's flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating twisted branches and thick underbrush. Rex was relentless, crashing through bushes, jumping over fallen logs. Chen struggled to keep up, branches whipping at his face, thorns catching on his uniform. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Chen's radio crackled with updates. The other K-9 units had found nothing. Helicopters with thermal imaging had spotted deer, raccoons, but no small human heat signature. The temperature was dropping. If Emma was out here, exposure was becoming a critical factor. "Come on, Rex," Chen murmured. "I know you've got this. Find her, buddy. Find Emma." At 2:17 a.m. they reached a creek bed. The water was low this time of year, just a trickle between exposed rocks and mud. Rex paused at the water's edge, his head swinging left and right, processing scent molecules in the air. Then he made a decision, turning right and following the creek downstream. Chen's legs were burning, his shirt soaked with sweat despite the cooling night air. They'd been searching for over 7 hours, but Rex showed no signs of fatigue. The dog was locked in, completely focused on the invisible scent trail only he could detect. Then Rex stopped, completely still, every muscle tense. His ears were forward, his nose pointing toward a concrete structure partially hidden by overgrown vegetation, a drainage culvert, maybe 4 feet in diameter, that channeled runoff from the subdivision into the creek system. The dog began to whine, a high-pitched sound Chen had heard only a handful of times. It was Rex's alert. He'd found something. Chen's heart hammered as he pushed through the bushes. "Austin PD, is anyone there?" Silence. He aimed his flashlight into the dark mouth of the culvert. The beam traveled 10 feet, 20 feet into the concrete tunnel. Then it caught something. Pink fabric. "Oh God," Chen breathed. He keyed his radio with shaking hands. "This is K-9 Unit 7. I have a possible visual. Drainage culvert approximately half-mile west of Rodriguez residence. Coordinates." He rattled off their GPS position. Rex was already crawling into the culvert, whimpering urgently. Chen followed, his flashlight revealing what his worst fears had imagined, a small body lying motionless on the cold concrete. Emma Rodriguez. Her lips were blue, her skin pale and waxy. She wasn't moving. "Emma, Emma, can you hear me?" Chen reached her, his fingers searching for a pulse at her tiny neck. "Please, please, please." There, faint, thready, but there, she was alive. I've got her," Chen screamed into his radio. "Child located, unresponsive, hypothermic. I need paramedics at my location now." Rex, having led them to Emma, now did something extraordinary. The big dog carefully positioned himself against Emma's small body, sharing his warmth. He lay his head on his paws and looked up at Chen with eyes that seemed to say, "I did my job. Now you do yours." In the distance, Chen heard sirens approaching. Help was coming. But as he stripped off his jacket to wrap around Emma's freezing body, as he whispered promises that she was safe now, that her mommy and daddy were waiting, he knew the truth. Rex had done the impossible. Against all odds, in miles of wilderness, the dog had found one small girl and given her a fighting chance at life. The paramedics crashed through the underbrush like a small army, their equipment clanking, radios crackling with urgent communications. Chen had never been so relieved to see anyone in his life. Lead paramedic Jennifer Walsh took one look at Emma's condition and her face went pale. "How long has she been unresponsive?" Walsh asked, already pulling out monitoring equipment. "Unknown. I found her like this maybe 3 minutes ago," Chen replied, reluctantly moving aside to let the professionals work. Rex remained pressed against Emma, unwilling to leave her side. "Rex, come," Chen commanded, but the dog ignored him, a first in their entire partnership. Rex's brown eyes were fixed on the little girl, and a low whine emanated from his throat. "It's okay, let him stay for now," Walsh said, checking Emma's vital signs. Her partner, Marcus Lee, was already radioing the hospital. "We've got a 3-year-old female, severe hypothermia, core temperature reading 89 degrees Fahrenheit, heart rate 45 and thready, respiratory rate 8, barely perceptible, pupils responsive but sluggish. We need a pediatric trauma team standing by." 89 degrees. Chen knew enough to understand that was dangerously low. Normal body temperature was 98.6. At this level, Emma's organs were shutting down, her heart struggling to pump blood through constricted vessels. "How long was she missing?" Lee asked as they carefully positioned Emma on a specialized hypothermia blanket. "About 36 hours, Chen answered, his throat tight. Walsh and Lee exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. 36 hours. A miracle she was alive at all. "The hypothermia probably saved her," Walsh said, working quickly to establish an IV line in Emma's tiny arm. "Slowed her metabolic rate, reduced her need for water. If she'd been somewhere warm, dehydration would have killed her by now." She looked at Rex, who was watching every movement with intense focus. "Your dog knew to keep her warm. Smart animal." They worked with practiced efficiency, wrapping Emma in heat-reflective blankets, attaching monitors, securing her small body to a backboard. Every beep of the heart monitor sounded fragile, like it might stop at any moment. "We need to move now," Lee said. "Life Flight is landing in the clearing near the subdivision entrance. 5-minute carry." 4 officers grabbed the corners of the stretcher. Chen followed, and Rex refused to be left behind, trotting alongside the stretcher as they navigated the treacherous terrain. The dog's eyes never left Emma. The forest seemed to fight them every step of the way. Branches snagged the stretcher, roots threatened to trip them, and the darkness pressed in from all sides despite their flashlights. Chen found himself praying under his breath, something he hadn't done since he was a child in Sunday school. "Stay with us, Emma," Walsh murmured, checking the monitors. "Your mom is waiting for you, sweetheart. You've got to fight." Emma's lips were turning bluer. Her breathing had become even shallower. "She's going bradycardic," Lee announced urgently, heart rate dropping to 38. They picked up the pace, practically running now. Chen's lungs burned. Behind them, he could hear the roar of the helicopter's rotors getting louder. They burst out of the tree line into a scene of controlled chaos. The Life Flight helicopter sat in the middle of the street, rotors still spinning, lights blazing. Sofia and Marco Rodriguez were being held back by 2 officers, Sofia screaming her daughter's name, trying to break free. "Emma's my baby, Emma." The sound of a mother's anguish cut through Chen like a blade. He'd heard it before, but it never got easier. The flight crew rushed forward, their movements precise and urgent. Dr. Rachel Kim, the flight physician, took one look at Emma and started barking orders. "Get her loaded. We're looking at moderate to severe hypothermia with potential organ damage. Alert Dell Children's that we need the PICU prepped, warming protocols initiated, and I want their best pediatric intensivists standing by." Sofia broke free from the officers and ran toward the helicopter. "Please, please, is she alive? Tell me she's alive." Dr. Kim turned to face the desperate mother. "She's alive, Mrs. Rodriguez, but she's very, very sick. We're going to do everything we can." "I'm coming with her." Sophia was already climbing toward the helicopter. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, there's no room. The equipment." "That's my daughter, my baby." Marco caught up, pulling Sophia into his arms as she collapsed in sobs. "We'll drive to the hospital," he said, his voice breaking. "We'll be right behind you." As they loaded Emma into the helicopter, Rex suddenly lunged forward, breaking away from Chen's grip. The dog ran to the aircraft door, placing his front paws on the edge, looking inside at Emma one more time. He let out a single, mournful howl that raised the hair on Chen's arms. "Rex, here," Chen commanded. The dog obeyed reluctantly, backing away as the helicopter door closed. Through the window, Chen could see Dr. Kim and her team working frantically over Emma's tiny body, attaching more monitors, adjusting IV lines, preparing for the worst. The helicopter lifted off, wind whipping debris everywhere, the sound deafening. Chen watched it rise into the pre-dawn sky, its lights blinking red against the darkness, carrying one little girl whose fate hung by a thread. Sophia had fallen to her knees in the street, Marco kneeling beside her. Chen approached them slowly, Rex at his side. "Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez," he said softly, "this is Rex. He's the one who found Emma." Sophia looked up at the dog through her tears. Rex walked to her and sat down, placing his head on her lap in a gesture so gentle, so filled with understanding, that Sophia wrapped her arms around the dog's neck and wept. "Thank you," she whispered into Rex's fur. "Thank you for finding my baby." The dog sat still, accepting her gratitude as sirens wailed in the distance. Marco placed his hand on Rex's head, unable to speak. "You need to get to the hospital," Chen said. "I'll have an officer drive you. The next few hours are critical." As they helped Sophia to her feet and guided the Rodriguez family to a waiting patrol car, Chen looked down at Rex. The dog's tail wasn't wagging. His ears were back. Somehow, Rex understood that the job wasn't finished. Finding Emma had been only half the battle. Now she had to survive. At Dell Children's Medical Center, a team of specialists was preparing for the fight of their lives. In the helicopter racing through the darkness, Dr. Kim watched Emma's heart rate dip to 35 beats per minute and felt the weight of an impossible responsibility. This little girl had survived 36 hours in the wilderness. She'd survived hypothermia and dehydration that should have killed her. Now they had to make sure she survived the rescue. The pediatric intensive care unit at Dell Children's Medical Center operated in a state of hushed urgency. Machines beeped rhythmic symphonies of life, IV pumps clicked and whirred, and nurses moved like ghosts between curtained spaces where children fought invisible battles. Room 412 became Sophia and Marco Rodriguez's entire world. Emma had been in the PICU for 6 days, and every single one felt like a lifetime. The first 48 hours had been touch and go. Dr. Sarah Patel, the pediatric intensivist, had been brutally honest with them. Emma's body temperature had been so low for so long that they were dealing with multiple system failures. Her kidneys had shut down. Pneumonia had settled into her lungs from aspirating creek water. Her heart rhythm was dangerously unstable. "We're doing everything we can," Dr. Patel had said on that first terrible night. "But you need to prepare yourselves. The next 2 days will tell us everything." Sophia had refused to leave Emma's bedside. She held her daughter's small, cold hand and talked to her constantly, telling her stories, singing lullabies, begging her to fight. Marco brought her coffee that went cold, food she didn't eat, changes of clothes she barely noticed. On day 3, Emma's kidneys started functioning again. On day 4, her heart rhythm stabilized. On day 5, they downgraded the pneumonia from critical to serious. Small victories that felt like miracles. On day 7, Emma opened her eyes. Sophia had been dozing in the chair beside the bed when she felt it, a tiny squeeze of her hand. Her eyes flew open to find Emma staring at her, those beautiful brown eyes confused and frightened but aware, conscious, alive. "Emma, baby, oh thank God." Sophia was on her feet, leaning over the bed, tears streaming down her face. "Marco, Marco, she's awake. Emma, baby, Mama's here, you're safe. You're in the hospital, but you're safe." Marco rushed in from the hallway where he'd been packing. Doctors and nurses flooded the room. Emma's eyes tracked the movement, wide and terrified as strange faces surrounded her, as hands checked monitors and shined lights in her eyes. Dr. Patel smiled warmly. "Hello, Emma. Welcome back, sweetheart. You're a very brave girl." Emma's mouth opened. Sophia held her breath, waiting for her daughter's voice, waiting for Mama, or scared, or anything. But no sound came out. "It's okay, baby," Sophia soothed. "The tube in your throat, it probably made it sore. It's okay, just rest." They extubated Emma later that day. The breathing tube came out and everyone waited for her to speak. She didn't. Not that day, not the next, not the day after that. "Sometimes children need time after trauma," Dr. Patel explained gently. "Her throat is healing. Give her a few days." But Sophia saw something in her daughter's eyes that terrified her more than the medical emergency had. Emma wasn't just quiet because her throat hurt. She was quiet because something inside her had broken. 2 weeks after her rescue, Emma was stable enough to move to a regular pediatric room. The physical healing was progressing remarkably well. Her kidneys were functioning normally. The pneumonia was responding to antibiotics. Her core temperature was back to normal. But she still hadn't spoken a single word. Dr. Lisa Chen, a child psychologist, was brought in for a consultation. She spent an hour with Emma, using toys and pictures, trying every technique in her arsenal. Emma would nod or shake her head, would point at things, would even smile occasionally, but she wouldn't speak. The meeting with Sophia and Marco afterward was devastating. "Your daughter is exhibiting symptoms of selective mutism," Dr. Chen explained, her voice gentle but direct. "It's a trauma response. Emma experienced something terrifying, the disorientation of being lost, the fear, the isolation in that dark culvert for over 30 hours. Her brain is protecting her the only way it knows how, by shutting down verbal communication." "Will she ever speak again?" Marco's voice cracked on the last word. "Most children do recover," Dr. Chen said carefully, "but it takes time, patience, and therapy. There are no guarantees about timeline. Some children recover in weeks, others take months or even years." Sophia felt like she was drowning. She used to talk constantly. She would narrate everything she was doing, make up songs, tell us elaborate stories. She was so vibrant. "And she can be again," Dr. Chen assured her. "But this is going to be a journey for all of you." They brought Emma home 3 weeks after her rescue. The homecoming that should have been joyful felt hollow. Emma clung to Sophia, wouldn't let her leave the room, and shrieked silently, mouth open, no sound, when Sophia tried to put her in her own bed. The nightmare started that first night home. Emma would wake up screaming, or rather her mouth would open in a scream, but only strangled whimpers emerged. Sophia would rush in to find her daughter drenched in sweat, eyes wild with terror, scrambling to the corner of her bed. "It's okay, baby. Mama's here, you're safe. You're home," Sophia would repeat over and over, holding Emma until the trembling stopped. It happened every single night, sometimes multiple times a night. Sophia moved a mattress into Emma's room, unable to bear the thought of her daughter waking up alone. The little girl who had once run to greet visitors now hid behind Sophia's legs whenever anyone came to the door. The child who had loved preschool refused to go back, crying silent tears and shaking her head violently whenever they mentioned it. The toddler who had been fearless at playgrounds now wouldn't leave the house. Dr. Chen started therapy sessions 3 times a week: play therapy, art therapy, gradual exposure therapy. Emma would engage to a point. She'd draw pictures, play with dolls, nod or shake her head in response to questions. but she wouldn't speak. "She's not ready," Dr. Chen told Sophia and Marco after 2 months of sessions. "Something locked her voice away, and until she feels safe enough, she's not going to let it out." Friends and family tried to help. They'd bring gifts, try to engage Emma in play, use every trick they could think of to coax out even a single word. Nothing worked. Some visitors would leave in tears, heartbroken by the change in the little girl they'd known. Sophia's mother came to stay for a week, giving Sophia and Marco a chance to sleep. But even she couldn't break through Emma's wall of silence. The worst part was seeing Emma's frustration. Sometimes she would point at something, wanting to communicate something complex, and when gestures failed, tears would roll down her cheeks. She'd pound her small fists on the floor, angry at her own inability to make herself understood. 3 months after the rescue, Emma's 4th birthday arrived. They threw a small party, just family, low-key, nothing overwhelming. Emma sat in front of her cake, candles lit, everyone singing happy birthday. "Make a wish, baby," Sophia whispered, holding back tears. Emma closed her eyes, and Sophia knew exactly what her daughter was wishing for. The same thing they all wished for Emma to find her voice again, to be whole again. She blew out the candles in silence. That night, after everyone had left, Sophia sat in Emma's room watching her daughter sleep fitfully. Marco came in and put his arm around his wife. "The invitation came today," he said quietly, "from the Austin Police Department, the Community Appreciation Event." Sophia shook her head immediately. "No, absolutely not. Crowds would terrify her." "There's going to be a K9 demonstration," Marco continued. "Rex will be there." Sophia looked at him sharply. Marco pulled out the invitation, showing her the photo on the front, police dogs and their handlers. She stared at this picture for 10 minutes, Sophia. It's the longest she's focused on anything since she came home. Sophia looked at her daughter, then back at the photo of the German Shepherd on the invitation. Rex, the dog who had saved Emma's life, the dog who had kept her warm in that dark culvert. "Maybe," Sophia whispered. It was the first spark of hope she'd felt in 3 months. The invitation sat on the kitchen counter for 3 days, a crisp white rectangle of possibility that Sophia couldn't stop staring at. Every time she walked past it, her stomach twisted with conflicting emotions, hope and fear locked in an exhausting battle. Austin Police Department Community Appreciation Day, the elegant script read. "Join us in honoring the volunteers, officers, and K9 units who serve our community. Saturday, September 23rd, 10 a.m. 2 p.m. Below the text was a photograph of 4 police dogs sitting in formation, their handlers standing proudly beside them. And there, second from the left, was Rex. She recognized him from the news coverage and the brief visit Officer Chen had made to the hospital. The German Shepherd's intelligent eyes seemed to stare right through the photograph, right into Sophia's conflicted heart. Marco had been right. Emma had fixated on that picture in a way she hadn't fixated on anything else since coming home. The invitation had arrived on a gray Tuesday morning, mixed in with bills and junk mail. Sophia had been about to toss it aside when Emma, sitting at the kitchen table pushing Cheerios around her bowl, had suddenly perked up. Her small hand had reached out, fingers pointing at the photo. Not frantically, not with the anxiety that colored most of her movements these days, but with something else. Recognition, interest, maybe even longing. Sophia had handed her the invitation, watching as Emma traced the outline of each dog with her finger, lingering longest on Rex. Her daughter's lips had moved slightly, as if trying to form words, but as always, no sound emerged. Still, it was more engagement than Sophia had seen in weeks. Now, 3 days later, Emma carried that invitation everywhere. It was crumpled from being held in her small fists, creased from being tucked under her pillow at night. Several times, Sophia had caught Emma sitting alone, staring at Rex's image, her expression unreadable. Dr. Chen had noticed it too, during their Thursday therapy session. "That's significant," the psychologist had said, watching Emma arrange toy dogs in careful rows, the invitation placed reverently beside her. "She's forming an attachment to the idea of Rex, or rather, reconnecting with a memory of safety." "But is going to this event a good idea?" Sophia asked, wringing her hands. "There will be crowds, noise, chaos, all the things that send her into panic attacks." Dr. Chen had been quiet for a long moment, watching Emma play. "Trauma recovery isn't linear, Mrs. Rodriguez. Sometimes healing requires stepping back into discomfort. The question is, will this be therapeutic discomfort or re-traumatizing? How do I know the difference? You watch Emma, you follow her lead, and you have an exit strategy ready." Dr. Chen had leaned forward, her expression earnest. "But I'll tell you this, Emma is showing initiative here. She's expressing interest in something outside her safe bubble. That's the first time since the incident, isn't it?" Sophia had to admit it was true. That evening, she and Marco sat on the back porch after Emma had finally fallen into restless sleep. The gate, the same gate Emma had wandered through, now had 3 separate locks. Sophia couldn't even look at it without feeling sick. "I think we should go," Marco said quietly. "Just for an hour. We can leave the moment she gets overwhelmed." "What if it makes things worse?" Sophia's voice trembled. "What if seeing Rex reminds her of being in that culvert, of being terrified and alone? What if it triggers something?" "What if it helps?" Marco countered gently. "Sophia, she's been carrying that invitation for 3 days. She sleeps with it. I found her this morning sitting by the window, holding it, looking outside like she was, I don't know, preparing herself." Sophia closed her eyes. She was so tired. Tired of watching her daughter suffer, tired of feeling helpless, tired of seeing Emma's mouth form words that never came. "Dr. Chen said Rex might represent safety to her," Marco continued. "He found her. He kept her warm. Maybe seeing him again will remind her that she survived, that she's strong. Or maybe it will break her all over again." They sat in silence, the September evening cooling around them. A dog barked somewhere in the neighborhood, and Sophia heard Emma stir in her room, probably starting another nightmare. "I'll call Officer Chen tomorrow," Sophia finally whispered. "I'll explain Emma's condition. Ask if it's possible to arrange a quiet meeting with Rex before the event. Something controlled, just us." But when Sophia called the next morning, Officer Chen had a different suggestion. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I understand your concerns," he said, his voice warm with genuine care. "But I think the event itself might actually be better than a private meeting." "How is that possible? The crowds?" "Hear me out. At the event there will be structure, demonstrations. Rex will be working, doing what he does best. Emma can observe from a distance at her own pace. There's no pressure for interaction, but if she wants to approach—" He paused. "Rex remembers her, I promise you that. Dogs don't forget the people they rescue." Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. "She hasn't spoken in 3 months, Officer Chen. She barely leaves the house. She has nightmares every single night." "I know, and I can't promise this will fix anything, but I've seen trauma victims reunite with their rescue dogs before. Sometimes it helps them reclaim a piece of themselves." Sophia looked across the room to where Emma sat on the floor, the invitation spread out in front of her, her small finger once again tracing Rex's face. "If we come," Sophia said slowly, "and it's too much, we need to be able to leave immediately." "Of course, I'll make sure you have a clear path to the exit, and Mrs. Rodriguez, bring the invitation. Let Emma hold on to it if it makes her feel safe." After hanging up, Sophia sat for a long time, staring at nothing. Marco had already left for work, trusting her to make this decision. Emma was in her typical morning spot, the corner of the living room where she could see both the front door and the hallway to her bedroom, always keeping her escape routes visible. "Emma," Sophia called softly. Her daughter looked up, eyes wary. Sophia picked up the invitation and walked over, sitting down on the floor beside Emma. She pointed to the date printed at the bottom. Tomorrow. The event was tomorrow. "Do you want to go here?" Sophia asked, even though she knew Emma wouldn't answer verbally. "Do you want to see the dogs, see Rex?" Emma's reaction was immediate and unmistakable. Her whole body leaned forward. Her eyes widened. Her hand clutched the invitation to her chest, and she nodded, the most enthusiastic response Sophia had seen in months. "Okay," Sophia whispered, pulling her daughter close. "Okay, baby, we'll go see Rex." That night, for the first time since coming home, Emma didn't have a nightmare. She slept with the invitation clutched in her hand, and Sophia, watching from the mattress on the floor, allowed herself to feel the tiniest spark of hope. Maybe Marco was right. Maybe Dr. Chen was right. Maybe Rex could help Emma find her way back. Or maybe Sophia was setting her daughter up for another devastating trauma. Only tomorrow would tell. As dawn broke on Saturday morning, Sophia dressed Emma in her favorite purple dress, the one she used to twirl in before the world became a scary place. Emma stood still, docile, but when Sophia tried to take the invitation to leave it at home, Emma's grip tightened and she shook her head firmly. "Okay," Sophia conceded, "you can bring it." In the car ride to the precinct, Emma sat in her car seat, silent as always, staring at that crumpled invitation like it held all the answers to questions she couldn't ask. Sophia's hands trembled on the steering wheel. Please, she prayed to whatever force might be listening, please let this be the right choice. The Austin Police Department precinct was transformed. Colorful banners hung from the building's facade, balloons bobbed in clusters near the entrance, and the parking lot overflowed with cars. Sophia's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "We can still turn around," Marco said softly from the passenger seat, though his eyes were on Emma in the rearview mirror. Emma sat in her car seat, the crumpled invitation pressed against her chest, her eyes fixed on the building with an intensity that was almost unsettling. She shook her head, a small movement but definitive. "She wants to go in," Sophia observed, surprised. Emma usually resisted anything unfamiliar, but today something was different. There was a determination in her daughter's expression that Sophia hadn't seen in 3 months. They parked and made their way toward the entrance. The sounds hit them immediately, children laughing, parents chatting, music playing over loudspeakers. Emma's hand found Sophia's and squeezed hard, but she didn't pull back. She didn't try to retreat to the car. She kept walking. Officer Chen was waiting just inside the door, as promised. His face lit up when he saw them. "Mrs. Rodriguez, Mr. Rodriguez," he greeted warmly, then knelt down to Emma's level. "And you must be Emma. I'm Officer Chen. My partner Rex and I have been looking forward to seeing you." Emma stared at him, recognition flickering in her eyes. She'd seen him in the hospital, though she'd been barely conscious. Her grip on Sophia's hand tightened, but she didn't hide behind her mother's legs like she usually did with strangers. "The K9 demonstration starts in about 20 minutes, Chen explained, straightening up. "It's in the gymnasium, straight through those doors. I've reserved seats for you up front, but off to the side. You'll have a clear view but also a clear path to exit if needed." "Thank you," Sophia managed, her throat tight with emotion. They entered the gymnasium and Sophia's heart sank. There had to be 300 people crammed into the space. Families filled the bleachers, children ran around the demonstration area, and the noise was overwhelming, a cacophony of voices, squeaking shoes on polished floors and excited shouts. Emma froze. "It's too much," Sophia said immediately, starting to turn back. This was a mistake. But Emma tugged her hand forward, not hard but insistent. Sophia looked down at her daughter in surprise. Emma's face was pale, her eyes wide, but she was pointing toward the seats Officer Chen had indicated. She wanted to stay. "Are you sure, baby?" Sophia asked. Emma nodded, clutching the invitation like a talisman. They made their way to the folding chairs set up along the side of the demonstration area. Marco sat on Emma's other side, creating a protective barrier between her and the crowd. Emma climbed into Sophia's lap immediately, making herself as small as possible, but her eyes scanned the gymnasium. She was looking for Rex. The minutes crawled by. Emma remained tense in Sophia's arms, flinching at sudden loud noises, but she didn't ask to leave. She just kept watching, waiting. Then the loudspeaker crackled to life. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today," a woman's voice announced. "We're about to begin our K-9 unit demonstration. Please welcome Officers Chen, Martinez, Williams, and Foster with their partners Rex, Luna, Duke, and Bella." The crowd erupted in applause. 4 doors at the far end of the gymnasium opened simultaneously, and 4 handlers entered, each with a dog heeling perfectly at their side. Sophia felt Emma's entire body go rigid. She followed her daughter's gaze and saw him, Rex, walking beside Officer Chen with the dignified bearing of a professional. The German shepherd's coat gleamed under the gymnasium lights. His ears were up and alert, his movements precise and controlled. Emma's breathing changed, faster, shallower. Sophia couldn't tell if it was panic or something else. "Do you want to leave?" she whispered. Emma shook her head firmly, her eyes locked on Rex. The demonstration began. The handlers put the dogs through their paces, obedience commands, agility courses, search and detection exercises. The crowd oohed and awed. Children squealed with delight. But Sophia was only aware of Emma, of the way her daughter's body remained coiled tight, of how she hadn't blinked in what seemed like minutes. Rex performed flawlessly. When Officer Chen commanded him to sit, stay, heel, the dog responded with precision. When they demonstrated a search exercise, Rex located the hidden object in seconds. He was magnificent, powerful, intelligent, completely focused on his work. Then something changed. As the handlers walked their dogs closer to the crowd for the final segment of the demonstration, Rex's head turned. His nose went up, scenting the air. His ears swiveled, and then his gaze locked onto something. "Emma." The dog's entire demeanor shifted. His tail, which had been held at a professional neutral position, began to wag, just slightly at first, then more enthusiastically. He pulled forward on the leash, just a fraction, and Officer Chen looked down at him in surprise. "Easy, Rex," Chen murmured, but he followed the dog's line of sight and saw the Rodriguez family. Understanding dawned on his face. The demonstration continued with Officer Martinez explaining tracking techniques, but Rex's attention kept drifting back to Emma, and Emma was utterly transfixed. Sophia could feel her daughter trembling, but it wasn't the trembling of fear. It was something else: recognition, connection, maybe even joy. Officer Chen wrapped up his portion of the demonstration and began walking Rex toward the crowd for the meet-and-greet portion of the event, where children and families could pet the dogs and ask questions. He was heading generally toward the crowd, but Sophia noticed he was angling specifically toward their section. Rex noticed too. The dog's pace quickened, his tail wagging harder. Then Emma did something that shocked Sophia to her core. Without warning, without hesitation, Emma slid off Sophia's lap. Her small feet hit the gymnasium floor, and she stood up. The crumpled invitation fell from her hand, forgotten. "Emma," Sophia reached for her, but Marco caught her arm. "Wait," he whispered, "let her." Emma took one step forward, then another. She was walking into the open demonstration area, away from the safety of her parents, into the space where 300 strangers could see her. The room seemed to sense something was happening. Conversations began to fade. People turned to look at the tiny girl in the purple dress walking alone across the polished floor. Officer Chen stopped moving. He stood perfectly still, Rex sitting at his side, both of them watching Emma approach. The silence spread like ripples on water. Parents hushed their children. The other handlers paused their interactions. Within seconds, the entire gymnasium had gone completely quiet, 300 people holding their breath as they watched a 3-year-old girl who hadn't spoken in 3 months walk toward a police dog. Sophia's hand found Marco's, squeezing so hard she was probably hurting him. Tears were already streaming down her face. She wanted to run after Emma, to protect her, to shield her from whatever was about to happen. But something, instinct, hope, desperation, kept her in her seat. Emma walked slowly, steadily, her eyes never leaving Rex. The dog's tail wagged faster, his whole body vibrating with barely contained excitement, but he remained sitting, waiting for Officer Chen's command. Emma stopped about 5 feet away. She was so small, dwarfed by the big gymnasium, surrounded by hundreds of strangers. Her hand raised slowly, one small finger pointing directly at Rex. The German shepherd whined, a high plaintive sound that echoed in the silent room. Emma's mouth opened. Sophia could see her daughter struggling, fighting against the silence that had imprisoned her for so long. Her lips formed shapes, her throat worked, her whole body tensed with effort. And then, in a voice that was rough from disuse, barely more than a whisper but unmistakably real, Emma spoke. "Good doggy found me." Time seemed to stop. 4 words. 4 simple, raspy, beautiful words hanging in the air of the gymnasium like something sacred. Good doggy found me. For a heartbeat, no one moved. No one breathed. 300 people frozen in a moment that felt suspended between miracle and dream. Then the room exploded. Not with noise, not at first. With tears. Strangers who didn't even know Emma's story felt them streaming down their faces. Parents clutched their own children closer. Officers who'd seen everything Austin could throw at them found their vision blurring. Sophia's legs gave out. She would have hit the floor if Marco hadn't caught her, holding her up as sobs racked her body. "She spoke," Sophia gasped. "Marco, she spoke. Our baby spoke." Officer Chen's hand went to his mouth, his own eyes flooding. In 8 years as a K-9 handler, he'd seen remarkable things, but this was something else entirely. He looked down at Rex, whose entire body was trembling with the effort of remaining seated when every instinct was screaming at him to go to Emma. "Rex," Chen said, his voice thick with emotion. "Go on, buddy, go to her." He released the leash. Rex didn't run. He was too well trained for that. But he moved with purpose, closing the distance between himself and Emma in seconds. When he reached her, he sat down immediately, putting himself at her level, and the tail that had been wagging went still. The dog seemed to understand that this moment required gentleness. Emma's small hand reached out, touching the top of Rex's head with trembling fingers. The moment she made contact, something inside her broke open, or perhaps broke free. Her face crumpled and tears began streaming down her cheeks. "You found me," she whispered, her voice gaining strength. "I was so scared. It was so dark and cold, but you found me." Rex leaned forward, pressing his head against Emma's chest, and the little girl wrapped her arms around the dog's neck. Her whole body shook with sobs, 3 months of trapped fear and pain finally finding a way out. The crowd watched in reverent silence as this tiny child poured out her trauma into the fur of the dog who'd saved her life. Parents held each other. Children stared wide-eyed, not fully understanding but sensing the importance of what they were witnessing. Officer Chen knelt down beside them, his hand on Rex's back. "Emma," he said softly, "do you remember that night?" Emma nodded against Rex's fur, not letting go. "I couldn't find Mama. I walked and walked. Then I was in the scary tunnel and I couldn't get out. I was so cold." Her voice hitched. I thought no one would find me." "But someone did find you," Chen said gently. "Rex did. He walked for miles to get to you. He knew you needed help." Emma pulled back slightly to look at Rex's face. The dog gazed at her with those intelligent brown eyes, and his tongue came out to lick her tear-stained cheek. Emma made a sound, half laugh, half sob, and it was the most beautiful sound Sophia had ever heard. Sophia and Marco were suddenly there, kneeling beside their daughter. Sophia pulled Emma into her arms, and Emma went willingly, but one hand remained on Rex, maintaining that connection. "You're talking, baby," Sophia sobbed. "You're talking again." "I couldn't before, Mama," Emma said, her words tumbling out now like a dam had burst. The words were stuck, everything was stuck, but Rex. She looked at the dog again. Rex made it okay. Marco wrapped his arms around both of them, his shoulders shaking with silent tears. "Thank you," he said to Officer Chen, to Rex, to the universe. "Thank you for giving us our daughter back." Around them, the gymnasium had erupted in applause, but it wasn't the polite, obligatory clapping that had greeted the demonstration. This was thunderous, emotional, people on their feet, some openly weeping. They were witnessing something profound, the healing of a broken child, the power of the bond between a rescue dog and the life he'd saved. Emma looked around, suddenly aware of all the eyes on her. For a moment, Sophia worried she would retreat back into herself, overwhelmed by the attention. But instead, Emma stood up straighter and addressed the crowd with the unself-conscious honesty only a child could muster. "This is Rex," she announced, her voice small but clear. "He's my hero. He saved my life." The applause grew louder. Officer Chen had to wipe his eyes before he could speak. "Rex is a very special dog," he told Emma. "And you're a very special girl. You were so brave out there in the woods, Emma. You survived." "I was scared," Emma admitted, her hand still resting on Rex's head. "But I knew someone would come. And then Rex was there, and he was warm, and I knew I was safe." The other K9 handlers had gathered around, their own dogs sitting calmly beside them. Officer Martinez, a tough-as-nails veteran, had tears streaming down her face. Officer Williams kept clearing his throat, not even trying to hide his emotion. "Can I tell you something, Emma?" Officer Chen asked, kneeling down again. "Rex hasn't been the same since that night either. He kept looking for you. Every search we went on after, he'd finish the job, but then he'd whine and look around like he was searching for someone else. For you." Emma looked at Rex with new understanding. "You remembered me." As if in answer, Rex leaned forward and rested his head on Emma's shoulder, as gentle as any therapy dog, as devoted as any guardian. The big, powerful German shepherd who could track criminals and search disaster sites was, in this moment, simply a dog comforting a child who needed him. Emma buried her face in his fur again, and this time when she spoke, her voice was muffled but audible. "I love you, Rex. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for being warm. Thank you for staying with me." Sophia looked at Marco, both of them crying, both of them smiling. Around them, hardened police officers, volunteer firefighters, and complete strangers were experiencing their own catharsis, because this wasn't just about one little girl finding her voice again. It was about the reminder that even in our darkest moments, help can come, that heroes sometimes have four legs, that healing is possible, even when it seems impossible. That love, in all its forms, can break through even the strongest walls trauma builds. Emma straightened up, her tears slowing. She looked at her parents, then at Officer Chen, then at the crowd of people who had witnessed her breakthrough. "I can talk again," she said, wonder in her voice. "Mama, Daddy, I can talk again." "Yes, baby," Sophia whispered, pulling Emma close. "Yes, you can." And as if to prove it, Emma began to speak, really speak, telling Rex about her nightmares, about being afraid, about missing him, about everything she'd been unable to say for 3 months. The words poured out in a torrent, and Rex sat there and listened to every single one, his tail wagging slowly, his presence solid and reassuring. The K9 demonstration was officially over, but no one left. They stayed, watching this miracle unfold, understanding they were witnessing something they'd tell their own children about someday. The day a 3-year-old girl found her voice again, because a dog helped her remember she was brave. The weeks following that breakthrough in the gymnasium unfolded like watching spring arrive after the longest winter. Emma's words came slowly at first, hesitant, cautious, as if she was testing whether it was truly safe to use her voice again. But with each passing day, the flow increased. Soon she was asking for water, nomming her toys, telling Sophia what she wanted for breakfast. The nightmares didn't disappear overnight. Emma still woke up screaming some nights, still clung to Sophia with desperate strength. But now, instead of silent terror, she could talk about what she dreamed. She could put words to her fears, and somehow, speaking them aloud made them smaller, more manageable. "I dreamed about the dark tunnel again, Mama," she would say, and Sophia would hold her close and remind her. "But Rex found you. You're safe now. You're home." The real transformation began when Officer Chen made an extraordinary offer 2 weeks after the gymnasium reunion. He called the Rodriguez home on a Tuesday evening, his voice warm with excitement. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I've been talking with our department psychologist and with Emma's Dr. Chen," he said. "We'd like to propose something, animal-assisted therapy, specifically therapy sessions with Rex." Sophia's breath caught. "Really? That's possible." "The department has a program for it. We use our K9s for trauma victims sometimes, especially children. If Emma's psychologist agrees, Rex and I could visit once a week. We've seen remarkable results with other cases." Dr. Lisa Chen approved immediately. "That dog is Emma's breakthrough," she said. "He represents survival, safety, and unconditional acceptance. This could be transformative." The first official therapy session took place on a Saturday morning in the Rodriguez backyard, the same backyard Emma had disappeared from 4 months earlier. Sophia had been reluctant to use that space, but Dr. Chen insisted it was important. "She needs to reclaim this place," the psychologist explained. "Turn it from a location of trauma into a place of healing." When Officer Chen arrived with Rex, Emma was waiting by the window, practically vibrating with excitement. The moment she saw the patrol car pull up, she was running, actually running, to the front door. Rex is here." The big German shepherd bounded into the backyard, and Emma threw her arms around him like greeting an old friend. And in a way, he was. The oldest friend, the one who'd been there during her darkest hour. During that first session, Dr. Chen simply observed as Emma and Rex played together. Emma threw a ball and Rex retrieved it. She brushed his fur with a soft brush Officer Chen had brought. She told Rex stories about her dolls, her favorite cartoons, her new shoes. But the most powerful moment came when Emma led Rex to the gate that had been left open, the gate she'd wandered through into nightmare. "This is where I got lost," Emma told Rex, her small hand on the gate that now had multiple locks. "I didn't mean to leave. I just wanted to see the butterfly." She'd never told anyone that detail before. There had been a butterfly. "I followed it," Emma continued, her voice small. "It was yellow and pretty, and I thought I could catch it and show Mama, but then I couldn't find my way back, and I got so scared." Rex sat beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. Officer Chen and Dr. Chen watched from a distance, hardly breathing. "But you found me," Emma said, kneeling down to hug Rex. "When I was in the dark, scary place and so cold I couldn't move anymore, you came. I heard you first, your paws on the concrete. I thought I was dreaming. But then you were there and you were warm and I knew everything would be okay." Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she watched from the kitchen window. Marco stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "She's going to be okay," he whispered. "Our girl is going to be okay." The weekly sessions with Rex became the highlight of Emma's week. Dr. Chen incorporated play therapy, art therapy, and gradual exposure work, but always with Rex present. Emma would draw pictures of her rescue, crude crayon drawings of a dark tunnel and a heroic dog with a cape. She'd act out the scary parts with stuffed animals, but always with Rex lying nearby, a living reminder that the story had a happy ending. 6 months after her rescue, Emma returned to preschool. She was anxious that first day, clinging to Sophia's hand. But she had a secret weapon now, a photograph in her pocket of her and Rex, taken during one of their therapy sessions. "If you get scared, just look at the picture and remember how brave you are," Sophia told her. Emma touched the photo through her pocket. "Rex thinks I'm brave." "Rex knows you're brave, and so do I." The transformation was remarkable. By spring, Emma was thriving, playing with other children, participating in class, sleeping through most nights. She still had her struggles, still had days when the trauma surfaced, but she had tools now, and she had hope. The real test came 1 year after her rescue, when the Austin Police Department asked if Emma would speak at their annual K-9 unit fundraiser. The event raised money for equipment, training, and medical care for the working dogs. "It's completely up to you," Officer Chen had said. "No pressure, but a lot of people have been following your story, Emma. They'd love to hear from you." Emma, now 4 years old and considerably more confident, thought about it for exactly 3 seconds before nodding enthusiastically. "I want to help the doggies like Rex." The fundraiser was held in a hotel ballroom with over 500 attendees. Sophia was nervous. This was so much bigger than the gymnasium, but Emma seemed calm. She wore her favorite purple dress and carried a small index card with notes Sophia had helped her write. When it was her turn to speak, Officer Chen lifted Emma up to the podium, adjusting the microphone down to her level. Rex sat beside her, his K-9 vest on, looking every inch the professional, but his tail wagged when Emma's hand came to rest on his head. "Hi," Emma said into the microphone, her voice small but clear. "My name is Emma Rodriguez and I'm 4 years old. Rex saved my life." The room fell silent, 500 people leaning forward to hear this tiny girl's story. "When I was 3, I got lost in the woods," Emma continued, her hand stroking Rex's fur like a talisman. "I was in a dark tunnel for a long, long time. I was very cold and very scared. I thought nobody would find me." Her voice wavered slightly, and Sophia started to stand, ready to rescue her daughter. But Emma took a deep breath and continued. "But Rex found me. He walked a really, really long way, and he used his super nose to find me in the dark. And when he found me, he stayed with me and kept me warm until the helpers came. He saved my life." Emma paused, looking down at Rex, who gazed back at her with absolute devotion. "After I came home from the hospital, I couldn't talk anymore. I was too scared. Everything felt scary. But then I saw Rex again, and he helped me remember that I'm brave. He helped me find my voice again." She looked out at the audience, her eyes shining with tears but her voice strong. "Police dogs are heroes. Rex is my hero, and that's why we need to help them, because they help us. They save people like me. Thank you." The ballroom erupted in a standing ovation that lasted for 5 full minutes. People weren't just clapping. They were crying, cheering, some openly sobbing. Emma looked around in wonder, then down at Rex, who licked her hand. "I did it, Rex," she whispered. "I was brave." The fundraiser raised 3 times its goal that night. As they drove home, Emma fell asleep in her car seat, exhausted but peaceful. Sophia watched her in the rearview mirror, this miracle child who had survived the impossible and found her way back to joy. "You know what she told me today," Marco said quietly. "She said when she grows up, she wants to work with rescue dogs. She wants to help find lost people like Rex helped find her." Sophia smiled through tears. Of course she does. Their daughter had been broken, lost in darkness, both literal and metaphorical. But she'd been found, by a dedicated police dog, by loving parents, by skilled therapists, and ultimately by her own incredible resilience. Emma Rodriguez, who had once been the little girl too traumatized to speak, had found her voice, and she was going to use it to make the world better. Because that's what heroes do, even the 4-year-old ones. The end.